welcome to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. And today is Friday, February the 7th, 2025. And we hope that you have clicked the link to download the Needle app, and then you can talk to us, you can chat with us, and we'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to turn this over to Michael, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody. Delighted that you're with us. And apologies for the challenges yesterday. Hopefully we'll get those worked through. And we actually had a meeting with the designer of the app today, and hopefully we're going to get some of the challenges worked out. It's a new technology. It's a new version of the app that you're listening on. Pardon me, and that we're working from. So we're working on patience, and it's awesome that we're getting the support and the attention and the gift of this app from Allende, who we just spent a half an hour with on the phone, and really nice to have that kind of support. And so we'll move forward. And if you're out there in listener land and you have a question or a thought for us, if you push the call button in the app, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have more conversation and more interaction rather than just monologue. Then push the call button. There's a checkbox or two to fill in, and then you push call again, and that'll put a hand up in the control panel, and I'll know. So I would be delighted to hear your voice. And yesterday, Jeannie has tried to clean up the app, or the show from yesterday, the audio and the echo, but that hasn't worked very well, unfortunately. So we're going to have to just be patient and work through those challenges as we move forward. So we were at a point yesterday where we were talking about the idea that the mind substitutes perception for the possibility of living in actuality. I'm going to repeat a few of those thoughts from the last day or two just to catch up and cover what was not, unfortunately, very discernible yesterday because of the echo, and our apology for that. So now that a false world based in the past perception has been inserted in the space where awareness based in truth and love belong, and the mind has massaged its past content, it has this amazing capacity, and that is your mind, my mind, each of our minds has the ability to take data called thoughts and turn them into pictures. And again, we've got a few new listeners who just joined. So if you have a question or thought for us, especially based on yesterday, and our apology for all the echoing, we did have a meeting this morning with the developer of the app, and so they're working on things and moving forward. But if you have any thoughts or questions, please push. I was going to say push one. No, no, push the call button, and let's have a conversation about what's on your mind. How can we support you? So once again, when an internal construct is massaged into looking like an external picture, the mind, that process, that ability of the mind to convert thoughts into pictures. If our thinking is off base, then our picture world, the world we think we're looking at through our eyes, but is really painted on the inside of our eyeballs by our brain, That process tricks people into believing that their realities, remember our definition of reality is the output of the mind. Reality is not what's going on in the actual world. Reality is a picture generated by the mind. It's the output of the mind. Another term for that is, of course, perception. When we believe that our realities are true about something outside of us, then we miss the opportunity and we tend to become addicted to trying to achieve something within a false structure. That false content from the past massaged into pictures and unresolved generational patterns. Repeat, 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 and we always find someone to play them out with. They are not. Perception is never a current, present moment experience. To replace from the past, and we have to get to the point where we can discern the difference. On its own, the mind cannot. Without conscious spiritual awareness, the mind cannot discern whether it's living in hallucination or there's accuracy in the constructs of the mind. And of course, as we talked about, fear and hostility are the prominent features that underlie the false constructs in the mind that tell us that the mind's using corrupt data. And when you go back into the ancient teachings, you find that they spoke of, or the directive was given by Yeshua, do not judge by appearances. And that's what what perception is. It's an appearance. So be careful when you assess your life based on the appearances developed by your mind, and build the awareness to have conscious cognitive experience without reference to your mind. And just it's such a huge piece of information to get that. Hostility or fear means my mind is lying to me. Now, my offering is that the human form, what we call a body-mind unit, is designed to live in prayer. Now, if you've got the Greek idea of prayer, that doesn't make any sense. And you might remember in the ancient Aramaic, they said there'll come a time where your whole life will become a prayer. And you say, well, what does that mean? You mean I'm going to spend my whole life down on my knees with my hands folded? That's not prayer. We've been defrauded. If Yeshua sat in a place where people were talking like that, he'd say that's all Greek to me. Prayer is not being down on your knees. Prayer in Aramaic, let's review the Aramaic idea, means to set a trap for God. That is to consciously, cognitively align yourself so that you, through resonance, interacting with the energy field, which has been called the creator's field, in which we live, move, and have our being, to align yourself so that you are converting that energetic interaction into the presence of active love. So this form that we were given was designed to continuously be aligned so that we capture, literally, in the same way that my TV antenna captures the signal from channel 2, and I get a great picture and sound if it's aligned and oriented properly. The human form, designed to be aligned and oriented properly, interacting, moving through this energy field called love, is designed to capture and literally continuously pour that presence of love into the universe, into our world. We're designed to capture the energy field in which we live, move, and have our being, and convert that into active present love. Now, and that active present love has an influence on everybody, and just touch into the newborn child. And now, rather than just the newborn and tapping into their essence, just think about the first year of life before the child is becoming tainted with the hostility and fear of the world around it. And notice the impact of the child on virtually everybody, but of course the most miserable who are miserable no matter what. Notice that the impact, everybody smiles. It's not just because of that cute little form. It's because of the energy that is present, conscious, and reflecting through that form. Now, the world, rather than supporting us in living our true design, that of reflecting into the world active present love, has fooled us into believing that what we need to do is achieve mastery over our power person dynamic. It's fooled us into believing that if we could just accomplish the level of power that our power person had, which really means if we could just inflict the wound as powerfully and relentlessly as our power person did on us, then we would have arrived. Then we would have taken the place of God. So when we're functioning out of our persona, you look at that word persona, the Greek word, and it means mask. And we've got a comment. Yin says, welcome Yin. Mind is lying with happiness too. Not that we're not supposed to feel good, but it's an illusion as well. Absolutely, I'm with you 100%. You know, happiness, and the goal of this work is not to achieve happiness. The goal of this work is to achieve joy. It's a whole different thing. Happiness is a result of achieving the goal. You'll notice that people can become addicted to achieving negative goals because every time a goal is achieved, they get a hit of dopamine, a chemical high that people call happiness, and that becomes a pursuit. People on drugs, oftentimes, that's what their whole lives are consumed with. But when we're living from being, when we're living as human beings, then the active presence of love that flows through our structure creates this result called joy, totally and completely different. And this is the shift that we're talking about is functioning out of being, out of our created essence, which is love, rather than functioning out of our personalities, our false mask based in the power person dynamic. You remember when people lived out of that false mask, the false self, Yeshua said, in order for you to live, you've got to die. And when we believe that we will make it when we can achieve our power person dynamic, when we can have the same kind of energetic power that they have when they were inflicting their wound on us, then the pursuit of that becomes literally an addiction. And unlike errant Greek forgiveness, where we're told to let others off the hook for these internally replayed dynamics, especially when we're under stress, experiences based in sadness, rage, fear, trauma, or even happiness, we must learn to actually forgive, to be free, to remove those dynamics from the mind, to get free of them. And the person or event that you think causes your pain only surfaces energetic structures or realities that are already within you. And each time someone shows up that shows you one of those, it's your opportunity to learn forgiveness. It's your opportunity to remove that. So with the tools, our painful experiences become the opportunity for literally monumental healing. And what we're looking for is that level of healing. So every time somebody resonates in us, the unresolved power person dynamic in our minds, which is reflected as some form of hostility or fear, literally it's a chance to become cognizant of that and to forgive, to undo or dismantle generational patterns that and repeating traumas that have gone on for most people forever. Now, my offering is life is about life. You listen to Yeshua and he says, I come to bring you life and bring it more abundantly. The whole objective is to live as a human being, as the presence of love. So when we're holding energies based in hostility or fear in physiology, that energy held in physiology, again, the cause of disease is known. You hold an energy in the cell that doesn't belong in the cell, and that cell is in the process of being self-destructed. Life abhors us doing that, so life, through resonance, sends us someone who hones in on the lowest energies we are holding, the ones that we've pushed. Why would they hone in on that? Why not hone in on the wonderful ones? Well, you look at how many times people have pushed down their pain, denied, dissociated from it, pushed it down, held their breath, locked onto it. And you see that each time that happens, that energy is intensified. And so life responds to what we've intensified in us. And it's denial that causes the dissociation that creates, imagine we've got a 3-foot diameter spring and we put that spring on the floor and it sits there. It can't do anything. But what happens if I go over and I push down on the spring and lock it in place? And then I push down on it again and I lock it, and I push down and I lock it. And then one day I undo the lock. What happens? There's a lot of power stored in that spring. The person who lives in denial, the person who, you made me mad, you made me sad, each time you do that, it's like pushing on the spring and locking it down. And the more energy, the more potential there is in the spring, the higher it's going to fly when you let the lock off. Well, when you apply that principle inside, the more we've pushed down on something we don't, the hurt, the pain, the sadness, the grief, I don't want to feel this, give me a fifth of scotch, I don't want to deal with this. The more we do that, the more intensely we push that energy out into the world. I had the blessing several decades ago of being a keynote speaker several times at a conference called Global Science. And one year, a gentleman named Marcel Vogel showed up at the conference with a camera. Marcel was a 23-year senior scientist from IBM. He's the guy who invented the magnetic coding that allows all of us to have computers. We wouldn't be having these phones in our hands right now from Marcel Vogel and his work at IBM. But in this particular session that he brought this camera, the purpose in bringing it was that this was called a Delaware camera, and it's a camera that can be attuned to different frequencies. So when you click the aperture open, in a normal camera, light energy comes in, it's registered on the photographic plate. Not so with this camera. This camera had a tuning mechanism, much like a radio tuner, and you could tune it to different frequencies. And if you had it attuned properly, and let's say, for instance, you put an acorn in front of it, the developed picture would be that of an oak tree. I mean, if you say, well, now, wait a minute, come on, how could that be? Well, think about it. Obviously, the oak tree is in the acorn. I mean, nobody's ever planted an acorn and gotten potatoes or gotten Volkswagens or gotten rose bushes. You plant an acorn and you get an oak tree. The energetic pattern, obviously, of the oak tree has to be in the acorn. And what the Delaware camera was able to do was to convert that energetic structure into pictures, just like your mind converts energetic structures in yourself into pictures. So Marcel showed us the pictures he was able to take of the high energy waves that leave the mind when we think of thought. All things being equal, if nothing were particularly given any great attention, then through resonance, we draw a variety of different experiences. But if there's one particular experience that we go, no, I don't want to, no, I don't want to, no, 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 we push it down, push it down, push it down, intensify it, then obviously the high energy wave that leaves the mind out of that set of brain cells, it's going to have a whole lot more intensity. And the more intensity there is, the faster somebody's going to come and show it to us. The faster somebody's going to, through resonance, respond and play it out with us. And so The act of denying and dissociating from content in your own mind guarantees that you will experience repeatedly the impact of those hidden energies and the results, the attraction, the resonating field that brings people in. As Carl Jung, one of my favorite quotes in the world, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. Does that fit for everybody? Does that make sense? Anybody have any thoughts, comments, questions? Is that, push the call button if you've got a thought for us and share it. But recognizing that we are creative beings, and every energy that we engage in impacts first and foremost the cells in which it is stored. Imagine that you had a newspaper, and of course you write your newspaper on a computer. And imagine that every story that you wrote into the computer impacted the function of the computer. Wonderful, sweet, beautiful stories would create a well-functioning computer, and fear and hate and harm and disturbance and trauma stories would create destruction in the computer. The average newspaper today, how long would their computers last? Not very long. And that's the perfect analogy for our human forms. What we engage in sets up through resonance somebody to play it out. And if somebody plays something out with us, it's time to start to own that and recognize that literally the cellular chemistry that comes from dissociating from content is destructive to the cell. And that life is always inviting us to either enjoy this particular energetic pattern. Hey, this feels fabulous in physiology. And if you're functioning out of your purpose, if you're living your life in prayer, that is, you're always aligned. Again, nothing to do with down on your knees, but literally you're aligned so that this energy field in which you live, move, and have your being is always feeding into you this presence of love, always feeding into you and reflecting in your physiology and expressing out into the world. Again, think of the newborn. And if you're having challenges with that, then start to reach inside yourself. And that's the whole purpose of the forgiveness process, is to access, embrace, and dissolve those patterns based in hostility or fear. So undoing the unnatural state of an unconscious mind, that's what Carl Jung was talking about. Until the unconscious becomes conscious. Everybody thinks it's fate. Everybody says, oh, look at how life is. No, look at how I am. It's time to delete the false world where we blame somebody else for what's moving in us, realign ourselves, and what will naturally happen is the active presence of love will literally flow into and fuel our cellular structure and become available through us to all of life around us. Realize that this human mind is designed to be, and this human form is designed to be a container for and an expression of the active presence of love. The process of forming unconscious projections leaves us believing the fallacy that as we look at the pictures or projections generated by our brains, self-generated, that our eyes are actually showing us something in the outer world. If I look at someone and I go, I'm in so much pain about that, I need to stop and go, no, I'm in so much pain because my container holds pain. Yes, this person who's playing it out, and maybe has played it out over and over and over again, we'd say, look what they're doing. And they may be a fully conscious person who's just saying, okay, I'll play this out for you until you get it. You've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people. Do you get that you're the only one that was there every time? Do you get that it's about you? Once we do, then the whole game changes. So codependence and denial is a belief that someone else or something else is responsible for what you're doing to yourself with your own mind. The fallacy that someone else is causing you to feel what's in you. And it's time to, if you're in some sort of pain and you say, I'm ready to be done with this, to stop having conversations with and about the outer world and start to have conversations with and about your inner world. And as you start to move into responsibility, then you'll find that your conversations, as you use responsibility communication, your conversations with the outer world that yesterday were all to blame will all of a sudden become something supportive and tend to move you in a different direction. Nothing could be further from the truth than this belief that others cause you to feel anything, that others are responsible for the enemy that's moving in you. Be in conclusion that somebody else is the problem leaves us stuck in this belief that the why is this happening to me again experience is forced on us from the outside. And the truth is, the world of pain perceptions is what needs to be addressed. And it's not impossible to escape. The objective of the tools is to work through it. And one of the reasons why it can be such a challenge is because unless you come from a family system that is understanding the conversation we're having and was able to have that conversation with you as a child, then your generations who believed, who demonstrated that the problem was out there, and sometimes perhaps even pointed a finger at you that the problem was you, means that you hold within your genes generations of unresolved pain. Every painful experience in physiology, mental, emotional, trauma, is an energy that can be removed, can be forgiven. And as you free yourself from the internal capacity to produce any kind of pain, you're opening a space to free not only yourself, but your generations. And our objective here in doing this work is to create support, literally for every mind, heart, and being on the planet, to move through those layers and to achieve new levels of serenity, new levels of aliveness. Is that making sense for everybody? Anyone have a comment, a question? How can we support you? What's on your mind? I'm used to having lots more conversations. Since we've gotten into the needle app, it seems there's a hesitancy to push the call button. So much of cellular communication is just a rehash of unresolved associated traumas from generations, past generations, beyond generations. And those patterns arise literally from the genes. And when those patterns arise, again, the mind, according to its thoughts, formulates those things into pictures that we think are outside of us. And we've got a caller. Hooray. Welcome, Celinda. How are you, young lady?
I'm fine, thank you. I really have particularly enjoyed these last 4 days, whatever I could listen in on, and I was wondering if you were going to possibly combine them or consolidate them into an archive, a special archive, because they seem to be
Can
very,
you, Celinda, you're
yeah.
really hard to hear. Can you elevate your voice a little bit, or if you got a headset, maybe you could work with?
Is this better?
Slightly. I don't know if it is for everybody else, but I know the other day when you called in, I could hear you. I had to listen closely, but almost no one else could hear you.
Well, I may have to have my speaker phone checked, or I have a difficulty projecting in general. Only you
Okay.
haven't had problems hearing me before, right?
Right. Well, it was the other day. Again, I had to listen really closely the other day. Your voice was quite low, but I could hear you. But I'm actually on a different app than you are. I'm on a studio, and the listening app is different. And the other day, everybody in the listening app had difficulty. So just if you, and maybe take it off of speaker and just speak right into the phone. Maybe that might help a little bit. Well, let's go for it.
If I can hear, let me see, where is the speaker? If I mute it, I can't hear you at all.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm not suggesting muting it. In any
Okay.
event, I heard your question, and
Okay.
yesterday's archive of the show is not working because of the echoes. Jeannie tried; she spent hours trying to clean it up. She actually went out and bought a program that's supposed to remove things like echoes, but it hasn't worked very well. So, unfortunately, we're just going to have part of that show. The part which I think was most important was a conversation with Natalie. Was just too echoey for her to clean it up. But
Right.
each of the last 3 or 4 days is or will be on our YouTube channel
By the
under
way,
the radio shows.
I had the same issue with your program yesterday and Tim's. I could hear, I could be heard, uh, but I don't know if I called in today. But you all were real quiet.
Yeah.
I had the volume all the way up, so it might be the program itself too.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
But they,
anyway,
yes, they will all be on the YouTube channel. I'm
great.
not sure exactly where Jeannie is with what she's
They're
got on the
dated.
YouTube channel.
They're dated, right, as to when they were.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
perfect.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm enjoying them. I've been having a lot of brain cells pop open, just listening
Awesome.
and doing my work. So, cleaning things up and making connections between my physical disorders and my emotional states and the decisions I made as a small child. I also have a problem with my own volume because of past lung issues. So Larry mentions that. He says he hears most everybody else, but he has a problem with me hearing me.
Ah,
And
okay.
we don't know what it is exactly. It could be the motorhome resonance. We just don't know. But
Okay.
I don't seem to have a problem with when I'm out talking to someone
Right.
else. So one
Yep.
of those mysteries
Okay.
of companionship,
Technology.
right?
We're working on it.
Yeah, we'll blame
So the
tech.
archives will be there, and I'm glad that this set has been useful for you. And I don't know whether I'm going to get to it on Monday or Tuesday, but I've made a couple of changes. Actually, I made a single change in the commitment this week, and then I was speaking with someone who is using the commitment on a daily basis with their partner. So I sent it to him. I'm planning on bringing it forward sometime when we get to it, sometime in the next couple of days. But I had sent him a copy of it because he was very actively using it in a new relationship he was in. And it was just this morning, we were on the phone and I was sharing it with him and why I had made the change that I'd made, which I will share on the show when we get to it. And as a result of that conversation, I made still an additional change. So I think you're going to be excited about where we go. We're going to go more into the codependence dynamic and with an example, and then the new pieces of the commitment. So I'm delighted the way the show's coming together, and I'm glad it's been meaningful.
And I hope some of this gets into your next writing that you decide to do.
Yes, there's so much on the plate.
I know you're going to have to live the eternal life. What can I say?
Yeah. All right, young lady. Delighted to hear from you.
Thank you. Can you hear
All
me
right,
better
blessings.
now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. That's definitely better. All right. Have a blessed one.
You as well.
All right. And I see we've got some comments. Let's check out and see what the comments are saying. And Jean's just informing everybody that from yesterday we'll only be posting my part because the rest of it was unfortunately just too echoey. So again, if you're out there, if you have a thought, a question, an answer, an idea, anything we can support you with, push the call button. And if you are listening to the show on because you got a notification, a text notification, and you click the text notification and you're listening on a web page instead of in the app, if you look up at the top of that page, if you're on an Android phone, click the Android symbol. If you're on an iPhone, click the Apple signal or icon, and that'll take you right to downloading the app. And then when you download the app, you'll actually be able to speak to us. You'll be able to interact live as we are, and that's what we want to create, more and more of that live interaction. So delighted that you're here. Any other thoughts before I move forward? Well then, let's just realize that these generational patterns are, when life responds to them, it's a wake-up call. That's all it is. It's just an invitation to say, hey, I've got something here. And Jeannie is making a note here too, which if you've downloaded the app, they have come out with a new version of it in the last week or so. So you might want to just update your app if you are having any challenges in listening. So the whole theme we've been working with for the last few days is the cause of disease is known. And once again, every thought you engage in becomes a neuropeptide, and neuropeptides that cause degradation of the cell are the cause of disease. That's the only thing that causes disease in the human cell. I mean, aside from a Mack truck, cancel the thought. But even the Mack truck, you know, yes, somebody got smashed down, again, cancel the thought, by a Mack truck. But why were they not listening? Why were they not attuned to? Why did their intuition not inform them there was a Mack truck coming? They were busy with something else. If we're in our natural state as human beings, not human doings, then what's going to happen is, because we live in an energetic universe, there is always communication available to us. But when we become so hyped in defending against our pain, defending our territory, being angry with, being, blaming, that whole game, that's when we lose the ability to listen on a deeper level. And those energetic patterns target the cell's aliveness and well-being, literally on a chemical level. Thoughts based in hate, angers, loss, when they insert themselves into a cell, show up as disintegrative information or chemistry in that cell. And my offering is, there is no other disease in the world. And so, now, does that mean if there's what you call a disease process happening in your physiology, that you shouldn't find a professional who works in that field, who's in the practice of understanding how to support healing? No, please get all the assistance that you can, but recognize that you are the captain of the ship, and that Your ability to steer your life is based in your own mind energy. And if we create this unnatural condition of unconsciousness, we hide from ourselves that which we don't want to deal with, then we lose the ability to steer our own lives. And of course, drugging oneself to cover up what they don't want to deal with is quite an assault to the system. Now, you remember once again from the CIA we quoted earlier, perception is demonstrably an active rather than passive process. It constructs rather than records reality. Where's the information come from that produces this thing called perception? It comes from the cell. It's a reflection. Every perception you have is a reflection of a particular quality of energy held in the cell. And every energy that you put into your structure will have a like effect on your own structure. If you don't want rage in your structure, then better be about forgiving as to your rage. By the way, in the ancient Aramaic language, you go to the Greek interpretations of the scriptures, and it talks about how we need to forgive others, how it's their fault. And when you realize that your mind is constructing the realities that you're experiencing, then my offering is there's no more valuable tool than the tool with which you can collapse the perceptual constructs of your own mind. And when you do that, that artificially generated world becomes nothing but a reflection of an unresolved past, which when it's embraced in love, when you allow yourself to have access, in hiding, it's pain, it's trauma, it's disintegrative chemistry in the cells yelling out, ouch, ouch, you're hurting me. But when we stop and we breathe, we open the veil of the temple. You know, when they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, they were not talking about a purple curtain in a church. They were talking about the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. When I open that veil, yes, there may be great trauma in there, maybe some horrific things. But if I stay conscious as active present love and breathe into and embrace those things, then their dissolution begins. When Yeshua says, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life, he's talking about our own unconscious mind. Out of the hidden parts of the mind, full of the energies that control and literally construct our perception. Big mistake to ever think about forgiving anybody. Pardon somebody if you choose to, but what forgiveness does is it collapses those constructs that come from the cell, and when they collapse in on themselves, and you have an opportunity to remove the energetic dynamics behind them. Forgiveness is a tool for removing defects in your own perceptual system. Maintaining love, your human life, in your mind is not a religious idea. It's the highest fuel designed to keep the mind on track. And we're always modeling, you know, when it comes to children. This has been such a powerful practice for Jeannie and I to maintain with now raising a little one. And recognizing that our job, you know, my offering is there has never been a child that has ever deserved to be punished for anything. Now, I know people come out of the scriptures and say, spare the rod, spoil the child, like the rod was a stick you're supposed to beat a kid into submission with. That's a mind with unresolved pain. There was never a child that deserved to be punished, hit, or beaten. And the rod, if you check on it, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. They were meant for support. They weren't meant for beating. So maintaining love maintaining your human life, regardless of what anybody's doing in the world, is not a religious idea. It's just, this is the energy that's designed to run our whole physiological feeling, our whole physiological system. And when love is not running it, that's when disease occurs. And when you realize that when you create false pictures in your mind that it's your brother that's the problem, Yeshua never said forgive your brother. It's interesting. When you go into the Aramaic language, everywhere that the Greeks translate, forgive your brother, forgive your father, forgive your mother, forgive yourself, it never says that. There are always two words that have been left out of the translation. So where the Greeks have translated it or interpreted it, forgive your brother, in Aramaic, what the words would say is forgive as to your brother. So in essence, what Yeshua was saying is, whatever you feel and blame your brother for, you're doing to yourself. And so you forgive not your brother, but you forgive as to what your brother has brought up in you. If you and I interact and up comes rage in me, I need to forgive my rage, not you. And forgiving my rage in Aramaic would be referred to is forgive as to what Bill brought up in you, that rage, not forgiving Bill. And notice that you're never upset with anybody, unless you're just a totally miserable person. You're never upset with anybody until they violate a goal you hold for them. Notice, as long as they're, you know, living out all the goals you have for them, you're pretty happy with everybody. Well, Michael, so what? Well, that's the clue. That's the key way into the forgiveness process. You're not upset by somebody doing something. Your upset is something already in your cellular structure that is triggered into activity by the action of a goal that you load in your mind that your brother is not fulfilling for you. And the more I've lived in denial around a particular issue, the more strongly I've energized that hidden content. The stronger the energized content, the more quickly it shows up as a creation in my life. And as long as I refuse to open this veil of my own temple and deal with what's moving inside of me, that energy sooner or later is going to come up and control me. Nothing, again, aside from cancel the thought somebody punching you in the nose, nothing causes an unpleasant sensation in your structure except an energy held in your structure that doesn't belong there. If you have a child that, you know, what you want is for them to do X and they're doing Y, and you're going berserk with, well, you kid, you need to stop. Cancel the goal for the kid and recognize there's a disturbed energy in you, and your job is to function and model for the child that you can forgive, that you can remove the irritation, the upset, the agitation in yourself, and you can be in a centered place where you are fulfilling your function as a human being. That is, that you are so aligned. Notice when you go into upset how the tightness of muscles occurs, and this creates a misalignment that inhibits our ability to be in resonance. You know, it's like somebody going in, you know, into a fit of rage is like somebody getting up on the roof of the house and bending all the arms and the antenna and turning it backward. A minute ago there was a perfect picture and sound, and now the picture's gone. It's hazy, it's snowy, it's lousy. When you are in a place of a softened breath moving through your structure, You're fulfilling your function as a human being. You literally are in resonance with that energy in which you live, move, and have your being. And the active presence of love is flowing through your tissue structure. But when you go into that, look at what you're doing, you just misaligned the whole antenna. You just bent the arms and the antenna. And that intensifies the pain that you feel in your structure. Soften and breathe. Look at the goal that the child is violating, or your spouse, or your neighbor, whoever it is. Cancel the goal and process through the pain that creates the misalignment and disease within yourself. Once you do that piece of work, and sometimes people will interpret this as, oh, does that mean I'm not supposed to have any goals? No, have all the goals in the world. But, well, then why would I cancel a perfectly good goal? Because if your holding of a goal resonates such a misalignment that you fall out of the capacity to resonate from within the presence of love in you, then canceling that goal collapses that whole structure in on itself, literally in the cell. And when you drop into your own cellular structure and remove those energetic patterns that collectively create, let's say, misalignments that pull muscles tight, that knock bones out of place, that create the clumsiness that leads to accidents, when you address those energetic patterns and remove them, then forgiveness has occurred. If I'm feeling the movement of impacted unpleasant energies I've hidden from myself, and I'm blaming you for it, again, I'm in denial. And the mechanism for hiding them is saying, you made me. Now I've said to my mind, you're not allowed to tell me the truth that this is mine and it's inside of me. I want you to hallucinate a world where you put these energies into my brain's image of them, and you paint those images on the inside of my eyeballs, and I get to say they're doing it to me. And that's all a lie. And the whole society has bought that silly error. And then, of course, the culture says, well, just forgive them, like they're the problem in your life. You're the only one that's been there every time there's been upset. And so the core of the forgiveness process is the ability to cancel the goal. Is that making sense? Why do I cancel the goal? Because when I load a goal in my mind that resonates my hostility or fear, it's my opportunity to clean up my hostility or fear. And that removes the energetic patterns that offend the cell and literally create, are at the root of all degeneration, all cancer, all divorce, all poverty, all trauma. Forgiveness not only corrects perception, but it facilitates restoration. One who really, if you really truly use the tool, engage in forgiveness, over time, you shift out of that self that's based in hostility or fear, and you, over time, and it's a process, you shift back to functioning out of your human life, like the newborn, out of that presence of love. And people look at you just like everybody looks at the newborn and smiles, because that's what the presence of love resonates in people. If you're holding this hostility and fear, that resonates something different in people, and people will respond to you accordingly. Now, saying to yourself that you're going to forgive them is like saying, gee, I'm going to drive to Charlotte, North Carolina, and they get in the car and drive to Birmingham. And then when somebody questions you, that, what are you doing? I thought you were going to drive to North Carolina. And you answer with a lie. I am driving there. I am forgiving. I am dropping inside my own cellular structure to clean up what's creating any scintilla of pain or trauma. So removing that painful content is the whole idea. And it's done by canceling the goal you hold for whoever you think, whoever your mind is telling you is the problem. And that's what removes the hidden generational energetic dynamics held within your own cellular structure. So pardon someone if you choose, and then apply forgiveness to the only place it belongs, and that's inside yourself. Forgiveness is the tool with which you uncover and heal the dissociated parts of self, the only root of pain and the only root of disease. So it's the act, forgiveness is the act of removing or evicting from your own unconscious the past, the part of you which has made up the perceptual reality that somebody else is responsible for what's happening in your life. Is that fitting? Is that making sense? I know, the first 34, 35 years I taught forgiveness a la first century Aramaic. I taught it because it worked, but I never understood why and how it worked. Why would I cancel a perfectly good goal? Because if I load that goal in my mind and it resonates something of a degenerative nature in me, I just reinforce the disease process. I cancel the goal, not because I can't have it, not because I don't want it, because I recognize it resonates something in me that I need to look at and heal. And when I cancel the goal, I clean up. You remember the Harvard research that says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, they can measure 10,000 units of electrical activity. In that same time frame, on a conscious level, there are only 9 bits of data available. If my mind is filled with structures about how you're the problem in my life, I can't access the part of me that's the problem. When I cancel the goal, that whole thing collapses. And now I can bring forward what I've been hiding for myself, what probably my generations have hidden forever. And that's where we want to go with this work. That's the total objective of it. Those who resonate or hurt are never the cause of a hurt. And we've been taught to blame anyone, ourselves, those we cherish most. Any object of attention will do when we're in denial, and it's time to end denial in our world. Actually, that's one of the new pieces that I put into the commitment. So I'm going to give up my denial. So forgiveness decompresses, decodes, and literally removes actual neuropeptides that distort cellular function and cause disease. Those energetic patterns that do not belong in the human mind or the human body. This is the true meaning of forgiveness. The Greeks did not have an understanding of that, so they turned it backward. If hostility or fear moves in you, it's because there's hostility or fear in you. And when you access it and remove the root thoughts that cause that hostility or fear, then you're freed of it and you move back to functioning as a human being. When used and understood properly, its activity accesses and removes generational impacts of hostility or fear. So once again, never forgive anyone for anything. Pardon them if you will. Use forgiveness to see, to access and remove internally generated disturbances. And it takes time to build the brain cells for the fact that you're doing that. And one of the reasons why we have a written worksheet, one of the reasons why you can do the worksheet in the app in writing, is because when you do it in writing, you will tend to catch your mind and see things that otherwise your mind would hide from you if you do not do it in writing. The objective of this work is to restore you to love, your birthright. It's how the mind is renewed, transformed, and cleansed of the viruses and the blockages of 1,000 generations, including those that cause all insanity, all addiction, all divorce, all death, all starvation, all suffering.